In today's episode, we're examining the most reckless proposal deaths ever recorded. From a couple who stepped onto unstable rock for social media shots, to a wilderness reviewer who chose a collapsing ice cave for his romantic moment, which buried his dreams in the most shocking way possible. It was March 15, 2016, at a popular skydiving center in southern Arizona. The morning was clear, with temperatures reaching 68 degrees Fahrenheit, calm winds at 5 miles per hour, and excellent visibility extending over 10 miles. Braden Thorne was 28, a fitness trainer from Phoenix with 2 years of skydiving experience. His girlfriend, Jessica Kane, 26, was a marketing coordinator with 18 jumps working toward her A license. Thorne had planned to propose during their jump, having secretly modified his gear setup to incorporate a custom proposal banner and ring attachment system he designed himself. The drop zone was well established with professional instructors and standard safety protocols. Both jumpers had current certifications and had completed their required currency jumps within the past 30 days. During gear check that morning, Thorne concealed his modifications from the standard inspection. He had attached a custom-made banner system to his leg straps, designed to deploy after his main chute opened. The banner read, "Marry me, Jessica," and included a small waterproof container with the engagement ring tethered to his harness with additional cordage he'd added. The proposal attempt was planned for 4,000 feet after both main parachutes had deployed successfully. Thorne intended to unfurl the banner while flying in formation with Kane, then present the ring during their descent. He had practiced the banner deployment on the ground, but had never tested the system during an actual jump. At 14,000 feet, both jumpers exited the aircraft in formation. Free fall proceeded normally for approximately 60 seconds. At 5,500 feet, Thorne deployed his main parachute. The chute opened properly, but the additional cordage and banner system he'd attached created unexpected complications. As Thorne attempted to deploy his proposal banner at 4,500 feet, the extra cordage became wrapped around his steering toggles, restricting control input. The banner fabric caught air and created asymmetric loading on his canopy, causing it to turn aggressively and lose normal flight characteristics. The entangled lines prevented Thorne from properly controlling his descent rate and direction. He attempted to cut away the banner system with his hook knife, but with the steering toggles fouled, the brake lines remained partially engaged. His parachute entered an unrecoverable spiral, significantly increasing his descent rate and putting him into a dangerous diving turn. Kane, flying nearby, watched helplessly as Thorne's parachute malfunctioned. She maintained her own controlled descent while observing the emergency unfold below her. Thorne, now below 2,000 feet and descending rapidly in the spiral, attempted to execute emergency procedures. Following standard protocol, Thorne performed a cutaway to release his main parachute and deploy his reserve. However, the banner cordage interfered with his cutaway cable, preventing a clean release of the main canopy. The main canopy failed to fully separate, and the reserve deployed into the trailing lines and fabric, creating a partial entanglement between both canopies. With both canopies now deployed but tangled together, Thorne had insufficient altitude to resolve the malfunction. The partially inflated canopies reduced his descent rate slightly, but not enough to prevent a fatal impact from the remaining altitude. Ground crew and other skydivers witnessed the emergency from the landing area. Kane landed safely and immediately directed emergency responders to Thorne's impact location, approximately half a mile from the intended landing zone. Emergency medical teams arrived within minutes, but were unable to revive Thorne. The modified gear system was found tangled around both parachutes, with the proposal banner still attached to the compromised equipment. Investigation determined that the unauthorized gear modifications had interfered with normal emergency procedures and parachute systems. The case was ruled accidental death caused by equipment malfunction resulting from non-standard gear modifications. It was July 22, 2017, in shallow waters off the southeastern coast of Florida. The afternoon was partly cloudy, with temperatures reaching 84 degrees Fahrenheit under light surface winds. Water temperature measured 79 degrees Fahrenheit with good visibility conditions. An artificial reef structure sat at 25-foot depth with moderate current during high tourist season. Lauren Nash was 29, a marine biology graduate student with advanced scuba certification after 2 years of regular diving. Her boyfriend, Emerson Vale, 31, was an insurance adjuster from Orlando with basic scuba certification obtained 6 months prior. Nash had planned an underwater proposal at the artificial reef site documented in dive logs and camera preparation notes recovered during the investigation. Nash had arranged for professional dive equipment but encountered problems the day before when their primary gear experienced malfunctions. The regulator showing signs of wear belonged to Nash and was not part of the dive shop's rental inventory. Staff advised replacing it with a rental unit or postponing the dive, but Nash declined. Dive shop records and staff statements later confirmed that Nash declined postponement despite documented equipment concerns. Her plan involved revealing an engagement ring in a waterproof container while Vale filmed the moment using an underwater camera housing. She had practiced the reveal sequence during previous dives and coordinated hand signals with Vale for optimal filming angles. The backup regulator made audible hissing sounds during the pre-dive check, with visible air bubbles escaping from the connection points. Pre-dive checks showed continued preparation despite visible regulator leakage and equipment concerns noted by both divers. The dive unfolded at the artificial reef site 25 feet below the surface, where coral formations created an ideal backdrop for the proposal. The artificial structure consisted of concrete modules that provided numerous cavities where colorful fish congregated. Nash and Vale descended according to plan, reaching the reef structure without initial problems. Nash had been underwater for several minutes, positioning herself near a large coral formation while preparing to retrieve the ring container when her primary regulator began delivering inconsistent airflow. Nash attempted to signal Vale while switching to her backup regulator, pointing to her primary regulator and making the standard hand signal for equipment problems. She discovered the backup regulator had entered a free flow condition, producing a continuous rush of bubbles from worn seals previously documented. The uncontrolled release of air rapidly depleted her remaining air supply and obscured her vision underwater. Nash's hand signals became increasingly frantic as she attempted to communicate the severity of the equipment failure. Vale, several feet away filming and slow to recognize the severity of the emergency due to his limited training, did not offer his alternate regulator before Nash began her ascent. Nash signaled a critical equipment failure and indicated the need to surface. Streams of air bubbles escaped continuously from her damaged regulator, creating a visible trail in the water as her air supply depleted rapidly. As Nash attempted to ascend, the uncontrolled free flow created a dense curtain of bubbles that disoriented her and disrupted her ascent. Her breathing became rapid and shallow as her air supply depleted. With little usable air remaining and her ascent slowed by confusion and panic, Nash lost consciousness at approximately 18 feet below the surface. Vale managed to reach the surface and signaled the dive boat captain, who immediately called for emergency response. Rescue divers reached Nash as quickly as possible, but were unable to revive her despite immediate resuscitation attempts. Investigation recovered both regulators, which showed the wear problems dive shop staff had documented. Nash's dive log showed she had been warned about equipment issues. Emergency response records documented the timeline and rescue efforts. Autopsy findings confirmed death by drowning due to equipment malfunction. The case was classified as accidental death, with investigation concluding Nash had been warned about equipment issues but chose to proceed despite safety concerns. It was September 8, 2015, in the wine country hills of Northern California. The morning was clear, with temperatures reaching 72 degrees Fahrenheit under light variable winds. Conditions were considered ideal for hot air balloon operations, with stable air layers over rolling hills dotted with oak trees and vineyards. Such weather regularly attracted balloon tours during peak tourist season, when flights typically launch shortly after sunrise to take advantage of calm, atmospheric conditions. River Caldwell was 26, a local adult education teacher, and Kira Valdez was 22, a nursing student. Both were active in community programs and had saved for months to afford a hot air balloon ride planned as part of their engagement. The flight was booked through a commercial operator offering scenic rides over the valley with standard safety procedures and passenger briefings conducted prior to launch. River intended to propose during the flight. During the pre-flight safety briefing, he requested that instructions be delivered primarily in Spanish. Flight records and witness statements later noted repeated acknowledgement gestures during explanations of emergency procedures, basket positioning rules, and guidance on passenger movement during ascent and descent. Investigators later noted uncertainty regarding River's comprehension of several safety instructions provided during the briefing, particularly those related to remaining within designated areas of the basket. The balloon lifted off smoothly and climbed to cruising altitude above the valley floor. For approximately 20 minutes, the flight proceeded without incident as the balloon drifted with the prevailing winds. Passengers remained within the basket as instructed, and the pilot maintained a steady course over the terrain below. As the flight continued, River prepared to begin the proposal. At a significant altitude, River moved toward the edge of the basket as he initiated the proposal. Investigators later identified this area as outside recommended passenger positioning zones, especially during periods of altitude adjustment. The pilot observed River's position near the edge of the basket and issued urgent warnings while attempting to stabilize the balloon's altitude. Recorded radio transmissions later confirmed that emergency alerts were issued as the balloon encountered a sudden thermal shift. The envelope tilted briefly, causing a sharp change in basket orientation. Kira moved toward River in an attempt to steady his position as the balloon continued its controlled descent toward a safer altitude. While standing on a basket bench near the edge to gain a clearer view, River was thrown off balance as the basket tilted. The change in vertical movement and shifting balance caused instability within the basket. With his weight already shifted beyond the basket's interior boundary, the sudden tilt carried River's center of gravity past the rim and he fell from the basket. Kira, positioned immediately behind him and reaching to pull him back, was pulled forward by the sudden shift and lost her balance, falling moments after him. The pilot immediately radioed for emergency response and applied a full burner blast in an attempt to stabilize the basket before executing an emergency landing in the nearest suitable area. Emergency responders were dispatched to the location beneath the balloon's flight path. Both River and Kira were located in an oak grove below, directly along the projected descent corridor. The investigation focused on communication issues during the safety briefing and passenger positioning during the flight. Recorded pilot communications confirmed repeated emergency alerts issued during the descent. Pilot statements confirmed that Kira moved toward River after he positioned himself near the basket edge, immediately preceding both falls. Medical examiners determined that the cause of death for both individuals was massive trauma sustained during the fall. Investigators ruled the deaths accidental, concluding that failure to follow safety positioning instructions, compounded by communication barriers during the briefing and sudden basket instability during a routine flight maneuver, led directly to the fatal outcome. It was August 3rd, 2014, in the open grassland plains of central Montana. A severe thunderstorm was approaching from the west, with temperatures reaching 78 degrees Fahrenheit under strong, gusty winds. Dark clouds showed visible lightning activity several miles away, advancing steadily across flat terrain with no trees, buildings, or natural shelter. The wide, exposed prairie offered little protection as weather conditions deteriorated, a known hazard during summer storm season in the region. Kelsey Hart was 27, a wildlife photographer who had moved to Montana to document prairie ecosystems for environmental publications. Her boyfriend, Quinlan Reed, was 29 and worked as a regional grocery store manager. Hart had planned to propose to Reed during the approaching thunderstorm, timing the proposal to coincide with the storm's arrival based on weather tracking data later recovered from her phone. The proposal was intended to take place outdoors, with the storm forming the visual backdrop. Hart drove Reed to an isolated area of grassland, timing their arrival to align with the storm's projected path. She positioned them on slightly elevated ground, approximately 2 feet higher than the surrounding terrain, to provide unobstructed views of the approaching weather system. Hart brought professional photography equipment, including metal tripods and portable lighting gear, which she arranged in the open field. Witness reconstruction and phone movement data later indicated hesitation and delayed departure despite worsening storm conditions. Phone records showed Hart actively monitoring radar data throughout the afternoon while positioning the proposal location ahead of the storm's projected movement. Weather tracking applications documented repeated checks of lightning density, storm speed, and direction as the system continued to advance toward their location. What followed unfolded on the slight rise in the grassland where Hart had positioned the equipment. The elevated position provided clear sight lines across the prairie, but also made the couple and their gear the most prominent objects in the surrounding landscape. As the storm drew closer, Hart began the proposal sequence while adjusting camera equipment in the open field, remaining near the metal gear as conditions intensified. Lightning activity increased across the prairie, with strikes occurring more frequently as the storm cell approached. Hart remained positioned at the highest point in the immediate area, holding metal photography equipment. She was struck by lightning while standing in the open grassland near the camera setup. The electrical discharge passed through her body into the surrounding ground, leaving visible disturbance patterns in the soil. Reed, positioned several feet away, was not directly struck and moved away from the equipment as storm intensity escalated. Hart collapsed immediately following the strike. Due to the continuing storm conditions, movement away from the scene was limited until the worst of the weather passed. Reed contacted emergency services using Hart's phone. Because of the remote location and hazardous weather, emergency responders were delayed until conditions improved enough to allow safe access to the area. Responders later reached the site and confirmed Hart was deceased. Investigators documented injuries consistent with a lightning strike. Camera equipment recovered at the scene showed electrical damage. Weather Service data confirmed the timing and location of lightning strikes in the area, matching the incident location. Phone records confirmed Hart had been actively tracking the storm's approach throughout the afternoon. An autopsy determined the cause of death to be cardiac arrest resulting from a lightning strike. Officials ruled the death accidental, concluding that remaining in an exposed, elevated location during active lightning allowed the electrical discharge to pass through her body, with nearby metal equipment providing a conductive path once the strike occurred. It was May 17, 2018, at a roadside wildlife attraction in East Texas. The hot afternoon reached 89 degrees Fahrenheit with high humidity under light winds. Large fenced enclosures housed various rescued animals, including 3 adult tigers. The privately run roadside facility operated with minimal staff during weekday hours, with feeding scheduled for late afternoon when animals were typically most active. Alexis Ward was 31, a content creator who specialized in adventure photography. Her boyfriend, Camden Cross, 33, was an experienced auto mechanic. Ward planned to propose to Cross by entering a tiger enclosure, apparently inspired by videos she had seen of people interacting with large cats. Ward had contacted the facility claiming interest in volunteer work, gaining information about daily routines and enclosure layouts. She planned to enter the tiger enclosure during what she believed was a calm period before feeding time. Staff records showed she had asked specific questions about animal schedules and facility access. During their visit, facility staff provided standard safety information about animal behavior and enclosure security, explaining the territorial nature of the tigers and their heightened aggression during feeding periods. Staff members warned about the dangers of entering enclosures and described the animals' unpredictable responses to unfamiliar humans. Ward asked detailed questions about feeding schedules and staff routines while appearing distracted during safety explanations. The incident occurred inside a tiger enclosure consisting of 3 connected pens totaling approximately 2,400 square feet with concrete flooring and chain-link fencing. The enclosure housed 2 adult females and 1 male, all rescue animals with unknown backgrounds and varying levels of human socialization. In the late afternoon, Ward climbed an internal 8-foot service fence within the enclosure and entered the tiger pen while staff were preparing feeds in another area, with Cross remaining outside the barrier and filming with his phone. The tigers, anticipating feeding time, immediately responded to Ward's presence in their territory. All 3 animals became alert and focused on her as she entered their space. Ward remained stationary while attempting to set up decorative items for her proposal. Cross shouted warnings from outside the fence while continuing to film. The nearest tiger, one of the adult females, approached Ward within moments of her entry. Ward turned toward Cross and waved, apparently unaware of the animal's proximity. The tiger attacked without warning, delivering a fatal bite to Ward's neck area. The attack was brief but caused severe trauma. Ward lost consciousness immediately. Staff discovered the situation during feeding rounds and immediately initiated emergency deterrent procedures, using noise and visual stimuli to break the animal's focus before securing them. Cross was escorted from the premises by facility personnel while emergency services were contacted. Emergency responders arrived, but Ward had already died from her injuries. Investigation recovered Ward's phone, which contained saved videos of people interacting with large cats and social media posts about unique proposal ideas. Cross's phone footage documented her unauthorized entry and the attack. Text messages between Ward and Cross revealed her proposal plans, with Ward expressing that she had seen people do this safely and wanted to create something unforgettable. Security footage confirmed the sequence of events. Medical examination determined the cause of death was massive trauma from the tiger attack, with fatal injuries occurring within moments of the initial contact. The case was ruled accidental death due to unauthorized entry into a dangerous animal enclosure. No charges were filed against the facility, as investigators determined that proper safety protocols and warnings had been in place. The facility implemented additional security measures following the incident, including enhanced perimeter fencing and increased staff monitoring during public hours. It was November 12, 2016, in a glacier formation in south-central Alaska. Overcast skies brought temperatures in the low 20s, with light snow and minimal wind. An ice cave, formed by natural melt patterns, extended approximately 40 feet deep. Recent temperature fluctuations had affected ice stability throughout the cave system, with limited daylight hours and early sunset. Miles Griffin was 25, an outdoor gear reviewer with wilderness experience and a YouTube channel focused on extreme location content. Griffin was skilled in winter survival and had experience with ice formations, but had increasingly prioritized dramatic content creation for his online audience. Griffin planned to propose to his girlfriend, Harper Ellis, inside the ice cave while filming content for his channel. He had researched the location and brought appropriate cold weather gear. His proposal plan involved multiple camera setups that required extended time inside the ice cave, prioritizing filmed content and presentation over minimizing exposure to the unstable environment. Griffin noticed stress fractures in the ice ceiling, but chose to continue filming and proceed with the proposal, believing he could finish recording before the instability became dangerous. He pointed out the cracks to Ellis, but dismissed them as manageable, indicating his belief that the proposal could be completed safely despite the visible warning signs. The disaster struck approximately 25 feet inside the ice cave, where Griffin had positioned multiple cameras throughout the chamber. Griffin began his proposal sequence, kneeling and reaching into his jacket pocket. Ellis positioned herself according to his earlier directions, for optimal camera angles. Recent temperature fluctuations had compromised the ice cave's structural integrity through repeated freeze-thaw cycles that had weakened the ceiling supports. The existing stress fractures had expanded throughout the day as temperatures varied. Without warning, a section of the cave ceiling collapsed suddenly and completely. Large ice chunks fell across the cave entrance and interior chamber in a matter of seconds. Griffin was struck by falling ice and trapped under debris near the center of the cave, with a large ice block pinning his legs and torso, while smaller chunks covered his upper body. Ellis, positioned closer to the entrance for filming purposes, was partially caught in the collapse, but managed to crawl through the debris field and escape the cave with cuts and bruises on her arms and back. Griffin remained conscious for a short time, but was completely immobilized by the ice debris, with his airway initially unobstructed as the cold rapidly set in. The freezing conditions began rapidly draining his body heat, as shock and immobility prevented him from generating warmth beneath the fallen ice. Ellis could hear him moving under the debris, but was unable to lift the heavy ice blocks that had pinned him. Ellis immediately attempted to call emergency services, but found no cell coverage in the remote location. She hiked to higher ground while marking her path and established contact with rescue services after reaching an elevated position. Due to the remote location and specialized equipment requirements for ice rescue operations, rescue teams were delayed in reaching the site. Ellis guided rescue teams to the location using GPS coordinates from Griffin's equipment. Rescue efforts located Griffin under the ice debris several hours after the collapse, but he had succumbed to hypothermia following severe traumatic injuries that left him trapped and unable to escape. His cameras had recorded the incident, including the collapse sequence and timing of events. Recovery teams extracted Griffin's body and equipment from the collapsed cave. GPS data from their devices confirmed the exact location and environmental conditions at the time of the incident. Camera footage showed the proposal setup and documented the sudden nature of the ceiling collapse. Autopsy findings confirmed death by hypothermia and blunt force trauma from the ice collapse. The case was ruled accidental death caused by natural ice formation failure. Investigation concluded that recent temperature changes had destabilized the cave structure, creating the stress fractures that led to the sudden collapse. Thanks for watching. If you like these stories, click here.